A barrage of nuclear torpedoes and EMP bursts slammed into the Xindi ships, immediately crippling and destroying several of the sleek alien vessels. The battered hulks of the ancient human fleet had just emerged from a 1,000-year journey through an unstable wormhole, and surprised the arrogant Xindi armada that had them surrounded. Admiral George Collins stood on the bridge of the dreadnought UES Defiance at the center of the human formation. His fleet was a relic from a bygone golden age, hopelessly outnumbered and outgunned by the advanced Xindi warships. The Xindi commander Tyro sneered dismissively at the primitive human antiques on his viewscreen. Humanity's technologically inferior descendants had long ago cemented the Xindi view of Earth as a backwater species. Tyro ordered his ships to secure their prize, expecting an easy victory. But Collins had other plans. The grizzled veteran knew the Xindi's arrogance was a weakness he could exploit. While feigning compliance with demands to surrender, he had secretly primed his fleet's archaic but devastating weaponry. The Xindi fell right into his trap. As the battle erupted in full fury, both sides knew the profound consequences at stake. Humiliating defeat by a supposedly inferior race would shatter Xindi dominance. But for the last of the once great human fleet, this was their final chance, to reforge humanity's place in the stars and secure a future free from alien oppression. Earth's fate hung in the balance as Collins and his intrepid crew fought like hell against the lengthening odds, determined to prevail or perish. The acrid stench of scorched metal and burnt circuitry filled the bridge of the UES Defiance as Admiral Collins surveyed the unfolding chaos on the console. The Xindi forces, momentarily scattered by the humans' surprise attack, regrouped with ruthless efficiency, their sleek ships assuming new formations under Commander Tyro's barked orders. "They're maintaining distance, Admiral," Commander Lee reported from the tactical station, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Looks like they're adapting their tactics." Collins nodded grimly, his weathered face illuminated by the flashing alarms and flickering displays. "Dispersing our ships into smaller formations should help. Use their own weapons fire to mask our movements and strike at their flanks." As the human fleet split into agile hunter-killer groups, the Xindi unleashed a barrage of searing plasma bolts from their long-range cannons. The superheated projectiles tore through space, their eerie glow casting shifting shadows across the battered hulls of the human ships. Deep within the bowels of the Defiance, Chief Engineer Sarah Harrington frantically worked to keep the ancient vessel's straining systems from collapsing under the onslaught. Sweat poured down her face as she rerouted power from every non-essential system, her fingers flying across the archaic control panels. "Shields are barely holding, Admiral," Harrington shouted over the intercom, her voice raw with desperation. "Rerouting power from life support and gravity plating. It's not much, but it might just keep us in the fight a little longer." Aboard the carrier UES Endeavour, Captain Marcus Reeves found himself locked in a brutal struggle for survival as Xindi boarders rampaged through the ship's narrow corridors. The bulkheads reverberated with the deafening chatter of pulse rifles and the guttural battle cries of the alien warriors. Reeves and his Marines met the invaders head-on, their mastery of close-quarters combat and improvised weaponry, turning the cramped passageways into a nightmarish killing ground. Viscous green blood mingled with human crimson as the desperate defenders fought with primal ferocity, trading their lives dearly to repel the boarders. As the savage melee aboard the Endeavour reached its climax and the battle in space entered a temporary lull, Admiral Collins found his thoughts drifting to the past. Memories of Earth at the height of its power, the launch of the ambitious expedition under Admiral Catherine Novak's command, and the disastrous first contact that left them stranded and presumed lost, played out in his mind's eye. On the Xindi flagship, Subcommander Zara voiced her growing concern over the humans' tenacity and resourcefulness. "Commander Tyro, we must reconsider our approach. These primitives are proving far more formidable than anticipated." But Tyro, his pride wounded by the humans' initial victory, dismissed her warnings with a snarl. "We will not be bested by these relics, Subcommander. Concentrate our fire on their right flank and crush them utterly." As the Xindi launched their massive, coordinated assault, the human fleet's right flank buckled under the onslaught. But Admiral Collins, having anticipated the move, had positioned his battleships to absorb the brunt of the attack. The heavy armor held, and the human vessels struck back with renewed ferocity, outmaneuvering the Xindi and tearing into their exposed sides. Just as the tide seemed to turn in humanity's favor once more, a monstrous shape emerged from the void. The Xindi dreadnought Imperius, a behemoth dripping with singularity cannons and armored in nigh impenetrable plating, had arrived to reinforce Tyro's beleaguered forces. Admiral Collins felt a leaden weight settle in his gut as he beheld this new adversary. The Defiance shuddered under the impact of a near miss, consoles exploding in showers of sparks and crewmen screaming as shrapnel tore through flesh and bone. Gritting his teeth against the smoke and chaos, Collins forced his racing mind to focus. Somewhere in the depths of his strategic acumen, there had to be an answer, a plan that could give his battered fleet a fighting chance against this seemingly invincible foe. The fate of his people, and perhaps the future of Earth itself, depended on it. The Defiance shuddered as another volley from the Imperius slammed into its weakening shields. Admiral Collins steadied himself against the tactical console, his mind racing through potential strategies. "Sir, conventional tactics aren't working," Commander Lee reported, her voice tense. "The Imperius is too powerful." Collins's eyes darted to the nearby asteroid field, an idea forming. "Magnetic harpoons," he muttered, then raised his voice. "All ships, concentrate fire on the asteroid field. Use magnetic harpoons to redirect the rocks towards the Xindi." The order spread through the fleet, and soon space lit up with the eerie glow of tractor beams, latching onto massive chunks of space rock. The asteroids hurtled towards the Xindi ships, catching them off guard. Several alien vessels crumpled under the unexpected assault, their sleek hulls buckling from impacts they were never designed to withstand. Commander Tyro's face contorted with rage on the monitor. "You dare?" he snarled. "Imperius, prepare the singularity weapon. Target their fleet's heart." As the dreadnought's main cannon began to glow with ominous energy, a small human craft, the UES Odyssey, found itself caught in the weapon's gravitational pull. Lieutenant Commander Mikhail Petrov wrestled with the controls, sweat beading on his brow. "We're being dragged in," he shouted over the groaning of stressed metal. "I can't break free." With split-second decision-making, Petrov steered into the pull, aiming for the gaping hangar of a nearby Xindi carrier. The Odyssey screamed through the energy field and slammed into the alien deck, skidding to a halt in a shower of sparks. Petrov pulled himself from the wreckage, helping Dr. Elizabeth Chen to her feet. "Everyone okay?" he called out, surveying his dazed crew. Before they could recover, the hangar doors hissed open. A group of Xindi, led by a striking female, entered with weapons raised. "I am Dr. Zara Kellick," the lead Xindi announced. "You will surrender immediately." Dr. Chen stepped forward, hands raised. "Wait, we mean you no harm. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Chen, Chief Medical Officer of the Odyssey." Kellick's eyes narrowed, but curiosity flickered across her features. "A doctor? Tell me, human, what do you know of your species' history? How did you come to be here, so far from your homeworld?" As Chen began to speak, sharing tales of Earth's past and humanity's resilience, the tense standoff in the hangar bay slowly eased. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, Collins watched in horror as the Imperius unleashed its singularity weapon. The fabric of space warped and twisted, threatening to tear his fleet apart. "Fall back," he ordered. "Lure them into the asteroid field." The human ships retreated, weaving between floating boulders as the massive Xindi dreadnought pursued. Once deep within the field, Collins gave his next command. "Now, destabilize the asteroids." Magnetic harpoons lashed out once more, this time pulling and pushing at the very rocks surrounding them. The delicate balance of the field collapsed, unleashing a maelstrom of stone and ice that engulfed the Imperius. A cheer went up on the Defiance's bridge, but it was short-lived. Alarms blared as the ship's reactor core began to overload. "Admiral," Chief Engineer Harrington's voice crackled over the comm, "the core's going critical. We can't contain it." Collins's face set in unyielding commitment. "Do what you can, Harrington. We're not done yet." As Harrington and her team delved into the ship's abandoned sections, searching desperately for a solution, they stumbled upon a forgotten databank. Lights flickered to life, revealing an ancient AI interface. "Greetings," a synthesized voice echoed through the dusty chamber. "I am Prometheus. How may I be of assistance?" Harrington's eyes widened. "We need your help," she said. "Our ship is about to tear itself apart." As Prometheus began to analyze the situation, offering potential solutions, Admiral Collins faced a crucial decision. The battle hung in the balance. Victory within reach, but far from certain. And now, an unknown AI from humanity's past had emerged, promising salvation but bringing with it a host of new questions. Collins gripped the arms of his command chair, weighing his options as the chaos of battle raged around him. As alarms blared across the Defiance's bridge, Admiral Collins' eyes widened at the flickering display before him. A new data stream scrolled across the screen, its source unfamiliar yet unmistakably powerful. "Sir, we're receiving input from something called Prometheus," Commander Lee reported, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's interfacing with our systems at an unprecedented rate." Collins leaned forward, studying the rapidly changing tactical display. "What in the name of—" "Admiral," Chief Engineer Harrington's voice crackled over the comm. "That AI we found, it's offering solutions to stabilize the reactor core. I've never seen algorithms like these before." "Do it," Collins ordered without hesitation. "And patch that data to the bridge. We might just have found our trump card." As Harrington and her team worked feverishly in the bowels of the ship, guided by Prometheus's seemingly omniscient instructions, Collins felt a glimmer of hope ignite within him. The ancient AI's influence spread through the Defiance's systems like wildfire, optimizing power distribution and unlocking long-dormant capabilities. "Admiral," Prometheus' synthesized voice emanated from the bridge speakers, "I have identified a vulnerability in the Cindy command network. With your permission, I can transmit false data to sow confusion among their ranks." Collins nodded grimly. "Do it." Across the battlefield, Xindi ships suddenly found their tactical displays awash with conflicting information. Friend became foe, and imaginary targets materialized out of the void. Plasma bolts meant for human vessels struck Xindi hulls instead, fracturing their once impenetrable defensive line. Commander Tyros snarled in frustration as reports of friendly fire flooded his command center. "What is happening? How are these primitives doing this?" On the captured Xindi carrier, Lieutenant Commander Petrov and Dr. Chen crouched behind a bulkhead, narrowly avoiding a patrol of agitated alien warriors. As the Xindi rushed past, distracted by the chaos unfolding outside, Petrov noticed a nearby maintenance hatch. "This way," he whispered, ushering his team into the cramped access tunnel. They emerged into a dimly lit corridor, face to face with a group of Xindi technicians, led by a female with distinctive facial markings. Petrov raised his makeshift weapon, but the lead Xindi held up her hands in a gesture of peace. "Wait," she said, her translator struggling with the human language. "I am Kana. We seek alliance against Tyro's madness." Dr. Chen stepped forward cautiously. "You want to help us?" Kana nodded solemnly. "Many of us have grown weary of this senseless conflict. Tyro's leadership endangers us all." As the unlikely allies exchanged information, a plan began to form. Kana's group knew the carrier's systems intimately, and with their help, Petrov realized they might just turn the tide of battle. Back on the Defiance, Collins watched in awe as the Xindi fleet's cohesion crumbled. Prometheus's intervention had given them a fighting chance, but the Admiral knew they needed to press their advantage before Tyro could regroup. "All ships," he commanded, his voice carrying across the human fleet, "form up on the Defiance. We're punching straight through their lines." As the battered human vessels fell into formation, guided by real-time intelligence from their new Xindi allies, Collins felt the weight of history on his shoulders. This was their moment, perhaps humanity's last chance to secure its place among the stars. The Defiance's engines flared to life, propelling the flagship towards the heart of the enemy armada. Collins gripped his command chair, steeling himself for the onslaught to come. "Prometheus," he said, his voice low but resolute, Let's show them what humanity is truly capable of. The flash of the EMP blast faded, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. Admiral Collins blinked away the afterimage burned into his retinas, his hands gripping the command chair as the Defiance shuddered violently. "Status report," he barked, fighting to keep his balance as the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated. Commander Lee's fingers danced across her console, her face illuminated by the dim emergency lighting. "Multiple systems failing, sir. Warp drive offline, weapon systems unresponsive. We're running on auxiliary power." Collins surveyed the flickering tactical display, his stomach clenching at the sight of the devastation. Where once a proud Xindi armada had stood, now only twisted metal and scattered debris remained. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. "How many ships did we lose?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lee's response was solemn. "Over half our fleet, Admiral. We're still trying to establish contact with the survivors." The bridge fell silent as the crew grappled with the enormity of their losses. Collins closed his eyes for a moment, honoring the sacrifices made by so many brave souls. When he opened them again, his gaze was steel. "Get me Chief Engineer Harrington," he ordered. Moments later, Harrington's haggard face appeared on the main view screen. Sparks flew in the background as her team scrambled to contain the damage. "Admiral," she said, her voice strained, "I won't sugarcoat it. The Defiance is dying. We've got multiple hull breaches, life support is failing, and the warp core is on the verge of a cascade failure." Collins absorbed the news, his mind racing through options. Before he could respond, a faint signal crackled through the comms. "This is Lieutenant Petrov. Anyone there?" The transmission was barely audible through the static. "Petrov?" Collins leaned forward. "What's your status?" "Trapped. Xindi carrier. Need immediate evac." The Admiral's mind focused. He turned to his crew, seeing the hesitation in their eyes. They all knew the risks of mounting a rescue operation in their current state. "Prep the shuttles," Collins commanded, silencing any potential protests. "We're not leaving our people behind." As the rescue team scrambled to launch, alarms blared across the bridge. Lee's eyes widened as she studied her console. "Sir, we've got multiple Xindi escape pods launching. One of them, it's Tyro. He survived." Collins cursed under his breath. The Xindi commander's survival complicated matters, but there was no time to dwell on it. Another alert demanded his attention. "Admiral," Prometheus's synthetic voice echoed through the bridge, "I've detected a malicious code spreading through the Xindi systems. It appears to be a last-ditch effort by Tyro to sabotage any technology that could aid us." The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Collins made the call, knowing full well the consequences. "Divert all remaining power to shields and life support. Priority is protecting those shuttles during the evac." The Defiance groaned as its systems were pushed to their limits. On the monitor, Collins watched as the rescue shuttles raced towards the crippled Xindi carrier. A handful of enemy ships, their hulls scarred and weapons barely functional, moved to intercept. "Incoming!" Lee shouted as the first volley of Xindi fire struck the Defiance's weakened shields. Collins gripped his chair, willing the shuttles to move faster. The bridge rocked with each impact, consoles exploding in showers of sparks. Through the chaos, he caught a glimpse of Petrov's team boarding one of the shuttles, accompanied by a Xindi female he didn't recognize. As the last shuttle cleared the carrier, a massive explosion tore through the Defiance's bridge. Collins was thrown from his chair, his world consumed by searing heat and blinding light. When he regained consciousness, he found himself in a cramped shuttle, surrounded by the battered remnants of his crew. Dr. Chen was tending to his wounds, her face etched with concern. "Admiral," she said softly, "we made it out, but the Defiance is gone." Collins struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain in his ribs. Through the shuttle's viewport, he saw the scattered remains of his once proud fleet. A handful of ships, some held together by little more than emergency force fields, limped alongside them. "How many?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Chen's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Less than a quarter of our original numbers, sir. We're low on supplies and most ships are reporting critical damage to life support systems. The weight of their losses threatened to crush Collins, but he forced himself to focus on their next move. It was then that he noticed the Xindi female standing nearby, her posture tense but her eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't quite place. Dr. Chen followed his gaze. "Admiral, this is Dr. Kalik. She wants to help us." Kalik stepped forward, her translator struggling to keep up with her rapid speech. "Your actions have opened the eyes of many among my people. There is a faction within our hierarchy that seeks peace. Let me be your emissary to the ruling council." Collins studied her, years of suspicion and hostility warring with the desperate need for allies. In the end, pragmatism won out. "Very well, Dr. Kalik," he said, his voice carrying the weariness of a man who had seen too much death. "We'll need all the help we can get." As the ragtag convoy of human ships set a course for the nearest habitable world, Collins looked out at the faces of his surviving crew. They had paid a terrible price for their victory, but in their eyes he saw a flicker of hope that refused to die. In the silence of space, as Earth's legacy drifted towards an uncertain future, Prometheus's fragmented systems processed one final transmission. The words echoed through the void, a testament to the indomitable spirit that had brought them this far. "We were once explorers, seekers of knowledge and peace among the stars. Though our path has been one of hardship and sacrifice, our spirit remains unbroken. Humanity will rise again."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.